Hey everyone, I'm on a mission to hit 1,000 subscribers, and I'd love your help to get there. If you're enjoying the content, do me a favor. Hit that subscribe button right now and join the family.
Right now feels like one of those moments in NASCAR that people will still be talking about years from now. The kind of moment where the headline looks simple, but the real story underneath is far more complicated. On the surface, everything appears normal. A veteran driver straps into a truck, finds speed, executes when it matters most, and reminds the entire garage why he's one of the most feared competitors of his generation. But if you followed this sport long enough, you know when something deeper is unfolding behind the scenes. Because this story isn't just about a race win. It's about access. It's about opportunity. And it's about how even one of NASCAR's most accomplished drivers is suddenly facing limits that have nothing to do with talent. We're talking about Kyle Busch, a two-time Cup Series champion, one of the most successful drivers in NASCAR history, a competitor who built his entire reputation on doing something almost no one else dared to attempt: racing everywhere, racing constantly, racing against anyone who lined up next to him. For years, Kyle Busch didn't just show up for Sunday's Cup race, he owned entire race weekends. Fans got used to seeing him in 3 different cars across 3 days: Truck Series on Friday, Xfinity Series on Saturday, Cup Series on Sunday. It wasn't just about chasing trophies or padding statistics, it was about rhythm, seat time, staying sharp. Busch believed that the more laps he ran, the more dangerous he became on Sunday. And for a long time, that approach worked perfectly. His dominance in the Xfinity Series became legendary. Busch piled up wins at a rate that seemed almost impossible. At one point, it felt like every time he entered the field, the rest of the garage was racing for second place. He eventually became the all-time winningest driver in the history of the Xfinity Series, and that dominance extended beyond just driving. Kyle Busch built his own team, Kyle Busch Motorsports, creating an entire system where he could race, develop young drivers, and control his own opportunities whenever he wanted extra track time. But something changed quietly in recent years, and many fans didn't realize just how big that change was. In 2023, Kyle Busch sold Kyle Busch Motorsports to Spire Motorsports. On paper, it looked like a normal business decision. NASCAR teams change ownership all the time, but behind the scenes, that sale removed something incredibly important from Kyle Busch's racing life: control. When Kyle owned KBM, he could create opportunities whenever he wanted them. If he felt like running a truck race to stay sharp, the seat existed. If he wanted to help mentor a young driver while competing himself, the infrastructure was already there. But after selling the team, that built-in safety net disappeared. Suddenly, every extra race required sponsorship, business approval, and financial alignment. And that's where the story took a turn that stunned NASCAR fans. The conversation really exploded when Samantha Busch spoke about the situation during an Instagram Q&A. She explained how much Kyle still enjoys running Truck Series races. According to her, he absolutely loves competing in the limited schedule he has this year. But then she added something that immediately caught fans off guard. She said that if sponsorship opportunities came together, Kyle would run as many races as possible in the Xfinity Series as well. Think about that for a moment. Kyle Busch, the winningest driver in the Xfinity Series history, doesn't currently have a guaranteed seat in that series. Not because he can't compete, not because teams doubt his ability, not because he doesn't want to race, but because the sponsorship pieces have to line up first. For longtime NASCAR fans, that revelation felt almost unbelievable. This is the same driver who once entered so many races across different series that competitors jokingly called him a one-man invasion. Busch became famous for showing up in development series events and immediately raising the level of competition. Younger drivers measured themselves against him. Veterans tried to outsmart him, and more often than not, he drove away with the trophy. But modern NASCAR doesn't operate the way it did 15 years ago. Today, every seat in the garage represents a carefully calculated business decision. Teams build lineups around long-term development drivers. Sponsors expect measurable marketing returns. Digital engagement, brand alignment, and business partnerships now play a huge role in determining who gets behind the wheel. Even superstar drivers have to fit into that structure. And Kyle Busch isn't the only veteran navigating this new reality. Even Denny Hamlin has spoken openly about the challenges of securing sponsorship for additional races beyond his full-time commitments. When drivers with Hall of Fame resumes are publicly discussing funding hurdles, it reveals something bigger happening across the entire sport. NASCAR's economics have evolved. Teams operate with tighter margins. Sponsors want strategic partnerships rather than simply attaching their logo to a famous name.
But here's what makes Kyle Busch's situation especially fascinating. Whenever he actually gets into a race car, he still performs like one of the best drivers on the track. His recent Truck Series victory wasn't a ceremonial appearance or a nostalgia moment for fans. It was pure competition. Busch controlled restarts with veteran precision. He navigated the draft like a driver who has spent decades mastering superspeedway strategy. When the race reached its most critical moments, he executed exactly the way champions do. And one of the most interesting elements of that race involved his evolving dynamic with rising driver Carson Hocevar. Early in the race, Hocevar raced aggressively. Fearless moves, bold lane changes, the kind of raw confidence that younger drivers often bring when they're still learning the boundaries of superspeedway racing. Busch noticed it immediately. At one point, he even compared Hocevar's approach to his own early years in NASCAR. That same aggressive edge, that same willingness to take risks. But as the race progressed, something interesting happened. The two drivers began working together in the draft. What started as chaotic positioning slowly turned into coordinated teamwork. At one key moment, Busch helped push Hocevar forward to gain track position. Later, Hocevar returned the favor with a perfectly timed shove that helped Busch surge into a race-winning position. It was a fascinating glimpse into how experience and youth can collide on a superspeedway. But that cooperation only lasts so long, because when Sunday arrives and the Cup Series cars roll onto the track, everything resets. Superspeedway racing doesn't respect friendships or temporary alliances. Draft partners can become obstacles in half a lap. A single miscalculated push can trigger a crash that wipes out half the field. Busch understands that better than almost anyone. He's spent years surviving the chaos of Daytona and Talladega. And right now, he's fighting two battles at the same time. On the track, he's proving that he still belongs among NASCAR's elite competitors. His racecraft remains sharp. His instincts remain dangerous. He's fully capable of beating drivers who are 10 or even 15 years younger than him. But off the track, he's navigating a business environment that doesn't automatically bend to resume alone. For now, his full-time Cup Series ride with Childress Racing remains stable. That partnership gives him a solid foundation in NASCAR's top division. There's no immediate threat to his position in the Cup Series. But the flexibility around it, the ability to jump into extra races and stay constantly active, has become far less certain. And that changes everything. Without additional races in other series, every single Cup weekend carries more weight. There's no extra Saturday start to reset momentum after a difficult Sunday. There's no additional seat time to keep instincts razor sharp. Every green flag becomes more important. But if history has taught NASCAR fans anything about Kyle Busch, it's this. He tends to become even more dangerous when people start doubting him. Throughout his career, Busch has responded to skepticism with relentless determination. Whenever the narrative shifts toward younger drivers taking over the sport, he finds a way to remind everyone that experience still matters. His competitive fire hasn't faded. If anything, moments like this often sharpen his focus. And that's why this story feels bigger than a simple scheduling decision. What we're watching right now is the collision between two powerful forces in modern NASCAR. On one side is the competitive spirit of one of the sport's most accomplished champions. On the other is the evolving business structure that now shapes every opportunity inside the garage. Legacy versus logistics. It's a battle fans rarely see so clearly. Because for years, the assumption was simple. If you win enough races, if you build a legendary career, doors will always be open. But the modern NASCAR ecosystem operates differently. Financial alignment matters. Marketing value matters. Development strategies matter. Even a driver with Kyle Busch's record must fit into that equation. And that realization has surprised many fans more than any dramatic crash ever could.
Because when people heard that Kyle Busch would run more Xfinity races if sponsorship appeared, it felt like a quiet alarm bell across the NASCAR world. Not a retirement announcement, not a farewell tour, just an unexpected reminder that opportunity in this sport isn't guaranteed anymore. And yet, the most important part of this story remains unchanged. The fire is still there. The speed is still there. The hunger to compete hasn't disappeared. Kyle Busch still loves racing. He still chases every advantage. He still lines up on the grid expecting to fight for the win. What's uncertain now isn't his ability, it's how many opportunities the business side of NASCAR will allow him to take. So, as the Cup Series returns to the track and Busch lines up against another generation of aggressive young drivers, the tension surrounding his career feels different. This isn't about decline. It isn't about fading speed. It's about adaptation. The sport is evolving. The economics are shifting, and one of NASCAR's most decorated drivers is navigating that transformation in real time. Which leads to the question that's quietly circulating through the garage. Is this simply a temporary hurdle that sponsorship will eventually solve? Or are we witnessing the early stages of a new chapter in Kyle Busch's career, one where opportunity becomes just as important as talent? Because if history has proven anything, counting Kyle Busch out has never been a safe bet. But in today's NASCAR, even the fiercest competitors sometimes have to fight their biggest battles away from the racetrack.